Hey you guys, it's Cassie. I wanted to come on and hopefully have enough time to record like how to make the flap for the front cover of your journals. So this is like part 1B. So I have changed my mind on like the postcard that I want to use for the cover. So I'm actually going to pick a new one and just kind of go through like my process on picking something like that. So I'm really leaning toward this postcard. It's unused, so you don't necessarily, like if you got an unused postcard in your kit or you're going to use an unused postcard, you may not care about using the window. I like using the window if there is like handwriting on the back, just so you can see that. So I really like this postcard, and I might use that one. So I am running really low on Christmas postcards actually. But so I might end up not using one. So like use a cityscape or building or something. This one is a reprint, and I mean it's like white on the back, but I kind of like that, and the blue looks nice with this. So I might use this one. Okay. So hopefully you guys have done part 1 of the video. That's kind of nice. I like the pink in it. Probably not. For birthday. So you guys kind of get a peek into my vintage mail ephemera here. Use an airmail envelope just because, like, if I'm not worried about showing the back through the window on an envelope, I might like that little detail of the stripes around, and then the back would be obviously like striped also. I don't know, probably not. I'm so indecisive. Okay, so it's kind of between these two, and I'm leaning more toward this one. I'm gonna save this one for later. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, so decided on my postcard. Okay, so prepping the envelope. Obviously this one is larger than the postcard size. So let me grab a pencil here. We are going to cover the envelope, so it doesn't matter that it's white. You can coffee dye it if you would prefer, but that's not necessarily something that you need to do. Gosh, I always take the blade out of my cutter because Lennon will come in and play with my cutter, and I don't want him to obviously cut himself. So I always have it on my desk. Okay. So obviously it needs to be sealed, and if yours is not sealed, you can just glue or, you know, tape or whatever you want to do. Okay, so obviously we want the hinge to be on this side, with these 3 sides open so that it does create that flap on the cover. You want the window to obviously be on the front side so that you can see through to the postcard. You can also create like a tuck spot out of your postcard if you want. I did not on the one that I have done, just because I figured with the belly band on the cover already, that was going to be like a lot. Plus you can always paper clip things to this flap if you want. Okay, so now we need to open this up, and all I do really is just clip off like a very slim sliver. So basically what we're gonna do is just mark a section of our vintage paper that we want to use. And we're gonna cut that down. Grab my trimmer again. Okay, so now, I actually meant to open this before the video. I had to get a new bottle of Fabri-Tac. I like using Fabri-Tac for things like this because it dries flat. Like there are no wavy bubbles in it when it dries. So, but you can use, you know, the glue or adhesive of your choice. Oh my gosh, it's sticky now. Okay. Oh, cutting the hole. Okay. So the hole, obviously, if the front of this will be covered, so it doesn't have to be exact. We just want the hole in this piece to be larger than the window. Okay, so on mine you can kind of see through to that. So I'm just gonna mark kind of roughly where that is. Now, unfortunately, you can kind of see I'll just put a label or something like that. Improvisation is kind of key, I guess, in doing this type of thing. And I am just cutting out, again, roughly with my scissors where the hole needs to be. Okay. Okay. Just gonna make sure this looks right. Okay, so now we're ready to glue. I'm gonna glue on the envelope side just because I know my cover piece is much larger. Well, slightly larger. I don't like a lot of gluing over. I can turn it over and just kind of make sure it's straight-ish. And then use the brayer. Okay. So now it's fairly flat, and our pieces stuck down. I have a hole in my paper, so that's roughly where I want my eyelet to be. I mean, obviously that's the back side, but that's roughly where my paper, or my eyelet, my string, sorry, will go around the journal. And so I'll just reinforce that with like a scrap of pattern paper or something, just kind of cover that little section. So just fold it in half. Now you can trim down with just your scissors. Just trim around. I am sorry, I watched my video back from the first part of this and I realized that I go off frame this way a lot, and so I'm trying to be more mindful of like not doing that. But apologies if I do. I tend to work very close to my chest, so I'm trying not to do that. Okay. So now I need to decide if I want my postcard to have that orientation or this. And I'm thinking this because I will have the eyelet. And so I want the eyelet to be seen. I like the way they look. And so this way it'll be like in this whole sky area. It might cut off a little bit of the text, but that's okay. So I'm just gonna add some glue. Just around the outside of this piece. I know a lot of you are cringing right now about gluing a vintage postcard, but and then just around the window on this piece. So that way we're getting a good contact, but we're not going to have like the overflow, I guess. Okay, so you'll notice I am not inking anything. It's your personal choice if you like inking. I don't know. I could take it or leave it on a lot of projects. I feel like if you're using vintage papers, you don't really need to ink because they already have their own patina and aging. But again, it is a personal choice. So if you want to ink, obviously ink before you glue, and you know how to do that. So yeah, like just lately I have not, I've not been inking much in my projects. Okay, so essentially that is the like the flat piece. Now on my other journal that I made, I did add like a reinforcement where I attached my eyelet. So I'm gonna do that. What do I want to do it with? Let's use some of the same paper we used to line the inside. I think that's very pretty. So just cut out a little piece and glue it on. I might actually use trying to decide where I want to pull from for this. Kind of like that little snail there. So I'm just going to add a tiny piece like that to cover the hole. A note about cutting, personally, I like cutting with scissors. I think that especially in a vintage journal, like imperfections are kind of what makes it seem more vintage. So when you're folding things and when you're cutting things, just kind of let yourself go. Like, don't worry so much about like perfect measuring and perfect cutting, because that kind of adds to the charm of the journal, I think, and the uniqueness. Like, you can measure and cut the same cut 100 times, but if you cut it just randomly, then that's going to be a one-of-a-kind cut. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Okay. All right, so that is it for that part.